Welcome to your Get That Nugget for GCSE English Literature. Today we're going to be concentrating on giving you the information that you're going to need to answer your English Literature question on Animal Farm. This session is here to complement your lessons with your teacher and not to replace them in any way. So a big part of the marks are awarded in this section for your contextual knowledge. So whilst you are being asked to understand the text, read the text, select key information from the text and analyse what the writer has done, you are also being asked to look at how, when the text was written, why the text was written, who it was written by, will affect its meaning. And so with Animal Farm, this is actually massively important because the whole novel is an allegory, and an allegory is a sort of alternative telling of a story. So whilst the story itself is about a group of animals that take over the farm and the pigs end up in charge, it is a mirror for, it is a metaphor for, it is an allegory of the rise of communism within Russia. And so what we have here is a series of key people who were part of the rise of communism, who were part of the Russian Revolution, and who are represented within the novel. So this is the Tsar. We start with the Tsar in charge, and that's Mr. Jones. And people were critical of the Tsar because he didn't care about his people, because he took lots of the wealth for himself, because he ignored some of his people. And a man called Karl Marx came up essentially with the idea of communism. Within the novel, it is referred to as animalism, and therefore this is Old Major. And the initial idea of communism, the initial idea of what would happen in Russia, was that it was this shared vision, this shared work ethic that made the country better and made everything better for the people. When Karl Marx died, we have two people who come in. We have Stalin and we have Trotsky. And these are represented by Snowball and Napoleon. So both of those advocated communism, both of them wanted to carry on the work that Karl Marx did, but much like in the book, they had two very different ideas of how they would go about doing it. So eventually, Stalin exiles Trotsky and has him murdered. And that mirrors Snowball's exit and probable eventual death. Trotsky wanted to maintain as closely as possible the original idea of communism. He wanted to rule by committee. He wanted to have people have a say. He didn't want anyone to be superior. So this echoes Snowball trying to build the windmills. This echoes his want to set up committees, and also the fact that he wants to teach and educate. Within the book, we also have Squealer, who represents the sort of propaganda machine that was run particularly by Stalin to try and ensure that people understood that it was, you know, a positive. So Squealer represents essentially propaganda and the media. We have other characters who represent other sort of areas. The rest of the farms, who are suspicious of Animal Farm. So the other farmers, the other farms represent the rest of the world. And initially they believe that Animal Farm will fail. And when it doesn't, when communism doesn't fail, when Animal Farm doesn't fail, the farmers start to make up rumours, which is essentially what happened in the rest of the world when they were looking at the threat of communism, being nervous about communism coming to their countries. And so in order to try and squash that, in order to try and quell it, they started rumours about communism, what was happening in Russia at the time. You then have Boxer, who represents the workers, the people in Russia who bought into the revolution, the people in Russia who thought they were working for a better future for themselves. And then we have Benjamin, who went along with it but was suspicious of it. So Boxer and Benjamin essentially represent the people of Russia. In addition, off the back of this, we have Bluebell's puppies, who are taken away by Napoleon and trained to essentially be his guard dogs. That represents the fear and violence that Stalin ruled with, his secret police. And so as you can see throughout the novel, there are things that coincide with the growth of communism. There are things that coincide with the change in communism, and the fact that ultimately at the end of the novel, the pigs are dressed in clothes, drinking alcohol, walking on two legs, is indicative of, or suggests, that the ruling class in the communist state of Russia became just as bad as the Tsar had been previously, in terms of not looking after the people of Russia, in terms of seeing themselves as superior, in terms of giving themselves more benefits than the rest of the people. Now, when you're using this in your essay, it is unhelpful to just say Napoleon equals Stalin, or Napoleon represents Stalin, without explaining how that links in to the rest of the novel and why that's important. So, for example, if you are asked what the message of Animal Farm is, you would need to look at the end of the text, talk about the fact that communism had failed in terms of its original idea, link that back to old Major's speeches about animalism, and then link it to the fact that Stalin became more of a tyrant, more of a dictator than the Tsar had ever been, in the same way that Napoleon became more vicious, more violent, less caring than Mr. Jones had been. So the question that I want you to answer is, what is Orwell suggesting about the revolution by ending the novel with the pigs indistinguishable from the men? Ultimately, he is suggesting that the Russian Revolution failed, but you have to unpick that in terms of what each of the animals has done and how each of the animals has ended up. So the fact that the animals clubbed together, revolted, got rid of the Tsar and his family, and led the pigs to be in charge, the fact that the pigs end up being like Mr. Jones means that the revolution and everything it stood for has come to nothing. So you're looking at about 2 or 3 paragraphs. What is Orwell suggesting about the revolution by ending the novel with the pigs indistinguishable from the men? Starting with the idea that the revolution was supposed to be for an ideal, that the pigs have taken over, and that the pigs have then become what the animals were originally fighting against.